Bob, the Littlest Dinosaur. Written and illustrated by Karlie Lucas. Read by Jack Broadbent. There once was a little dinosaur named Bob. He was the littlest dinosaur in his family and got teased a lot. One day, Bob decided he didn't like being teased. He'd heard about a powerful wizard who could make him bigger, so he decided to try and find him. Bob traveled far and wide to find this wizard. He had to cross a large river. He was so small, he had to use a large leaf as a boat to get across. On the other side of the river was a large desert he had to cross. Then came a big meadow full of giant plants and insects. But once he got past that, he found a tall mountain. Near the top, Bob found a large house made of stone. He knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. The door opened and out came the wizard. "Yes?" the wizard asked. Bob felt a little scared because the wizard was so big. "Mr. Wizard," he said, "can you make me big like my brothers and sisters?" "You want to be big?" the wizard asked. Bob nodded as he shook with fright. "Yes, please," he said. "First, go to the top of that volcano," the wizard pointed. "Climb down inside and find a giant flower. Bring it back, and I will make you bigger." Then the wizard shut the door. Bob looked at the volcano. It was really tall, and he wondered if he could make it. But he'd made it across a river, a desert, a meadow, and climbed a mountain. He decided he could do it. The volcano was steep, but he found a way up, and up, and up. At the top, he looked down into the lava below. There was a small path leading down. It was only big enough for him. Happy he wasn't too big, Bob began to climb down into the volcano. The lower he got, the hotter it became. He was just about to give up when he saw a large flat area, and in the middle stood a giant flower. Bob ran the rest of the way down. When he got there, he realized the flower was too big for him to carry. With a sigh, Bob sat down and started to cry. Tap, tap, tap. Bob looked up and saw the flower was shaking. A door opened in the tall green stem, and out came a gnome. "Hello, little dinosaur," the gnome said. "Why are you crying?" Bob sniffled. "I'm sad because I can't pick this flower to take to the wizard. He said he'd make me big if I do." The gnome thought for a moment. "Why do you want to be big?" he asked. "Because I'm the littlest dinosaur in my family, and everyone makes fun of me," Bob said. The gnome nodded. "That is a problem, but is being little a bad thing? If you were big, you couldn't have made it down here, and you wouldn't have found me." Bob's tears stopped. "You're right," he said. "If I was big, I couldn't have done that. But I still want to be big." The gnome thought some more. "If you want to be big, don't go to the wizard. He's not a nice man." He handed Bob a little seed. "Take this seed back home and plant it instead. If you do, something wonderful will happen." Bob took the seed. "Something wonderful will happen if I plant this little seed?" The gnome nodded. "I promise. Just don't go see the wizard again." Then the gnome went back inside his flower and the door closed. Bob put the seed in a safe place and looked up to the top of the volcano. He'd climbed down this far. He knew he could make it back up, and he did. Then he climbed down the volcano and up the mountain where the wizard lived. But he did not go to the door and knock. He did not have the giant flower, and he remembered what the gnome had told him. He climbed down the mountain. It took a long time. Then he crossed the large meadow with the giant plants and insects, only they didn't seem quite so big this time. Then he crossed the desert, which didn't seem quite so wide. When he came to the river, he had to find a bigger leaf to get across, but he made it safe and sound. And finally, he made it back to his family. He told his family about his adventures. Most of them didn't believe him, but that was okay. He had a magical seed, and he planted it. He was not sure what such a small seed could do, but he trusted the gnome. After a while, the seed grew into a beautiful flower with a tall stem. It looked just like the one in the volcano. Bob heard 3 loud tap, tap, taps. Then a door in the stem opened, and out jumped the gnome. Bob was so happy he hugged him. He did not realize the gnome was a little smaller than before. "My friend," the gnome said, "you have freed me from the wizard's spell. As a reward, I will make you as big as your brothers and sisters." Bob thought for a moment. Then he realized something. Everything did not seem quite so big because he was not as little anymore. He smiled at the gnome. "No, thank you," he said. "I think I'll get big on my own. But would you be my friend?" The gnome was so happy, he said yes! He then danced a little dance. "Hooray for Bob!" he called out, and Bob's brothers and sisters gave a cheer. Bob was still the littlest dinosaur, but he didn't mind. He had a lot of brothers and sisters to look up to, and a new friend to stay by his side. The end.